Well, can't put this off any longer. We've put the clutch on, used the alignment tool to get the plates in the centre and everything else. I've made a cradle for the jack so the gearbox sits in so I don't have to wrestle it too much. So it's time to put the gearbox under the car and try and see if it fits in the hole that we made for it last time. I hope so. This is going to be very tight and probably quite a struggle. So anyway, let's get on with it while it's a dry day. Because the space up here is so tight, I've actually had to take the clutch pack off the flywheel and put it onto the gearbox spigot, and then I'll put the gearbox on and then pull that forward using the clutch fork and put the bolts in from the flywheel through the inspection hatch that we've got here. I think that's the only way it's going to happen without taking the engine out. It's a bit tight, that's for sure. Anyway, we shall persevere. Well, here we are after a marathon session last night. The gearbox is in. I got all the adapter plates and that done. One of the problems was that the bolts that are up the top here, they're difficult to get to on the 1UZ, and the Nissan gearbox, two of the bolts are about 20mm further up, which makes them going from difficult to impossible. So what I ended up doing is the front cross member here that mounts the engine, there's some big bolts, there's two big bolts on each side, two big nuts, sorry, and if you slacken those you can drop this whole cross member down, and by doing that it gave me enough access. Yes, so I ended up lowering the entire engine and front suspension out of the car to be able to get to two bolts to tighten them up. But anyway, it's done. The gearbox is big. It's a lot bigger at this end and a lot lower down than the Lexus box, so I'm going to have to get it as far up into the tunnel as I can. So next job now is, this is the 350Z mounting plate, where the original mount went, and these are the mounting holes here and here for the 1UZ. So I've got to connect something between two of those to hang the back of the gearbox, and then I can put the gear stick in, and then we're onto the little finishing off jobs. So when it comes to gearbox mountings, this is the nice neat mounting that Lexus do for the LS400, aluminium casting and a nice V-shaped rubber mount. And this is the monstrosity that Nissan use, where we have the gearbox mounting on this face and also on this face, and we have this enormous stamped steel bracket, which isn't so great, but I think we'll have to use that for now. But obviously the brackets are different sizes, so I think the easiest way to do this is to bolt the Nissan one onto the gearbox, and then we'll cut this at the appropriate width, and we'll be able to use the same mounting holes as this one, a bit of angle iron welded along here and across there, bolt it up through the chassis onto the original gearbox mountings, because they're not far off each other. I think that'll do us, so that's not going to be too bad. You know what, having looked at the Nissan mount and all the bits and pieces, I think it's just ridiculously big for what we're doing, and it doesn't really fit the car, so I'm just going to fabricate one out of steel plate instead. I think it'll be a much nicer job. So we'll get this marked up, get it cut up and make it on the car, and I think using just 4 plates I can do a really simple one. Right, let's get on with it. You'll be able to see how this mount's coming together now. So we've got a plate on each side, here and here. I've fabricated this slightly U-shaped plate, which obviously gets the mounts onto the original place. It uses the original mounting bolt and rubber from the 350Z. So looking underneath you can see the shape of this. So I'm going to make another plate to go flat across the back of there, get the welder out and weld it all up, and that will be a really solid gearbox mounting. Here we are, there's our mounting done. So you can see we've just got the 2 plates, the bent plate here to take it forward, straight plate, and the 2 that are bolted to the chassis. So everything's bolted up here, but obviously it's still loose. So all I'm going to do is get the welder, tack all this in place so it's in the right place, take it off, seam weld it all, and that is a solid gearbox mounting. So I've given the bracket a quick lick of paint here, so that's it. Let's install it. That's it, we're in. So bracket fits nicely, that's all there. I've had to slightly enlarge the gear stick hole because the Lexus has a very small one. So that's in. So next job, put the gear stick on and prop shaft and exhaust, I think. Cool. So next job is to put the slave cylinder on, which we've done here, and I went down to the local auto parts place and found flexible hose. One of the problems with putting a manual gearbox into an auto car is that there's nothing that you need. So even things like the clutch piping and such like, which is all these finishing off jobs, take time. So we found a flexi pipe that fitted the master cylinder. We had to make a banjo bolt because we didn't even have that, because everything was missing, of course. So we've put the flexi on, run it up behind the fuel line so it's away from the exhaust, made a little bracket up the top to mount it on, and now we can run a rigid line from there up to the master cylinder that we fitted I think 2 episodes ago, and that will be the clutch piped up and we can get that bled. This is looking down the left hand side of the engine, and you can see our bracket that we made. This was, I don't know, we repurposed some bracket off something else that when we took the car apart I found it in the box of rubbish. We put a hole in, we put a clip through so the pipe holds itself there. So we'll run the pipe up the firewall, and where we've got another brake pipe here already for the left hand front, and we will run it across with this all the way across to that side of the firewall where our master cylinder sits for the clutch. Here's our finished rigid clutch pipe. Now it's time to fish it in and out of all the cables and pipes and everything else and get it in the right place. Tighten it up, then we can get the clutch bled, and we'll actually have a working clutch on an automatic or ex-automatic LS400, which isn't a bad achievement, I think.
So, at last it's time to put the clutch fluid in the clutch and see if it works.
Shut up and sit down.
One of the issues of taking the auto box out is that the car won't start. So this is our gearbox wiring harness, which is a couple of speed sensors, gear position sensor, and the actuator connectors for the automatic box. And obviously we're not going to connect any of that because we don't have the gearbox to put it in. But what we need to do is we've got this connector here, which is I think it's an 8-way or something like that, which used to go to the gear selector switch. And what we need to do is there's a black and a black-white wire, and we need to connect both of those together, because what that does is it makes the car think it's in either park or neutral, so it'll send the start signal, because otherwise it won't turn over and it won't put power to the ignition. So simple job really, cut those two wires, there we are, and we will solder those together and insulate them, and that will mean at least the car will start without us having to bypass that with a bit of wire. There we are, never know that's been done, nice neat job. Right, we're going to cable tie the rest of these out of the way for now, until we take the engine out, in which case we'll take the wires completely out of the car, but for now we'll just leave them in and tie them up somewhere safe.
So it's finally time to fit the prop shaft into the car. And we found out that the Nissan 350 prop shaft fits perfectly in the Lexus tunnel. The only problem is it's about 2 inches too short at the back, which we can fix. So I think it's time to make a spacer and get a running manual Lexus. All we have to do now is make this square prop shaft fit on this triangular one. And so we're just going to measure up the flanges and make a spacer to go between them. Right then, so here's our adapter for the prop shaft. So we'll now run out to the lathe and the milling machine and get this all machined up.
So here's our billet we're going to turn into our prop shaft adapter. It's a nice bit of EN24. We just managed to have it lying under the bench, bizarrely, as you do have billets lying around in your workshop. We're going to make a lot of swarf, turn this into the adapter, and get on with that. So time to get the lathe programmed. Here's our prop shaft adapter. We've finished all the turning work on it. As you see, that's come out very nicely indeed. We've got a 50mm diameter spigot on here, which is going to be the prop shaft end, and we've got a 16mm one on the other. You can probably see the hole at the centre there, and the 16mm one is to take the pin that's on the nose of the diff. So we're going to put some holes in this now and get it on the car. So get it onto the CNC milling machine and we'll set this off. here's our prop shaft adapter. We've got the 3 holes that go on the diff side, we've got the 4 holes in the spigot that go onto the Nissan carbon prop shaft, and it's time to go and stick this on the car now, and then I think we should be done at last. So obviously this is made out of chrome moly steel. Obviously we've machined it from billet, so that is proper strong, and it will be the last thing on the car to break. And I hope we're okay with all this now, and the good news is that we've got an LS400 with a carbon prop shaft as well. Can't be many of those around. So you can see Leon's been busy under here. The gearbox actually sits a little higher than the exhausts, so it's not the lowest thing on the car, which is good. The prop shaft's in here at the front, you can see it above the exhaust. We can't get the front prop shaft retainer in, but the exhausts are there to do that job anyway, so I'm not worried about that. And the rear prop shaft retainer, which sits back here, if I move, Leon modified this and actually to put it on the other way up, because the standard Lexus one has this curve pointing downwards and there's not enough room above the prop shaft to do it, because this prop shaft's a much bigger diameter, this carbon one, than the standard Lexus one. So Leon modified the holes here on both sides and put the bracket on the other way up. Right, so what we're going to do now is put our spacer between these two. We've got 25mm of free play in and out on the prop shaft, so when everything moves around it won't bind up. Let's bolt it on and then we should be sorted. There we are, there's our adapter in. Project gearbox, I think, is finished. Nice. Right, last job before we drop this on the ground is put some gearbox oil in, and if you'll know, putting oil in gearboxes when they're in cars is a right pain because the fillers are almost impossible to get to. So the best thing to do is to get your oil, get a squirty bottle like this, a bit of flexi rubber hose, and we just use a bit of bent copper pipe, and we can put that into the gearbox, hold this upside down, squeeze it, and you get the oil into the gearbox. So we're going to do this, fill it up, and at last we're done. Well, this is the moment of truth, so let's fire it up and see if we can run it up and down the driveway. Oh, I better put my mirrors out first. So obviously this is the first time we're going to have started and driven the car. I've just let it off the jacks. It's the first time with our manual conversion, and you know, if you go back to episode 11, myself and Leon, we've done all this in-house. You know, flywheel, adapter plate, prop shaft adjustments, changed the mountings, all sorts of things. You know, we've done the whole thing end to end. We hope you've enjoyed seeing it, and let's see if all that work's actually been worthwhile. Here goes reverse. It's in something. We're moving. Yes. This clutch doesn't feel too bad actually. I thought twin plate ceramic would be evil. Right, let's try first gear. That looks like an automatic a manual LS400 to me. Let's go and try it on the private lane. Since it's not road registered, we can't use it on the main road. and then we'll get it sorted. So I hope you've enjoyed Project Gearbox. It's been an epic one from start to finish. Yeah, we hope you've learned a bit, enjoyed the journey, and join us for our next projects, which are going to be to get the interior out, get some race seats and belts in, get some decent suspension on it, and the job after that is turbo. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, tell people about it, and tell us if you like it.